I'm so sorry to have to do this video. I truly am. And for this one, I'll wear a shirt. So, let me get one. See, it occurs to me that I've given a lot of messages in my addresses to social assistants. I address problems in my nation. Some would call me a social justice warrior. That's not what I am. It's very clear what I am to those in the know. For those of you who aren't, I'm Keith Daniel Robinson. I'm the Crown Prince of Canada, and I have a message for the Canadian people. I know that it may at first sound like a message of despair, and if you've heard the things I've said and that I've refused to take the throne, well, these things are true. That I've accused our government of criminality and gangsterism. Well, that's true. The Liberal Party is nothing but a gang. They're the worst kind. The power-hungry kind. The cruel kind. But I'm also here to bring you a message of hope. See, we do have power in this country. We are people. We have control, whether you know it or not, because we goddamn well outnumber them. And if every Canadian were to stop voting for 1 year from this day, heck no. You gotta wait till there's a vote and then not do it. As a citizen, go to the voting poll and tell them you no longer believe in this party system. You no longer believe that the vote is honest, because it's not. The truth is, I was told who would be leading 35 years in advance. They have this all planned out, believe it or not. It's very controlled who leads. And it has to be. Would you want it to be random? Would you really want the random people nowadays just randomly voting and picking who's going to lead? You don't even know anything about these people. They just get put in by a party. You have no background on them to really come forward and say, hey, I know these people and they deserve to lead. Now, originally, the way our system is actually engineered, just like in Britain, it's a copy of the British system. I don't know if you knew that, which means we're a constitutional monarchy. However, there's basically Magna Carta, which means that the crown has absolutely no power. No law can be passed in this country without the authority of the prime minister and his cronies. That is why I have refused to take the throne. See, what you failed to realize, what a lot of you failed to realize, I'm sure, is that the power isn't mine. It never was. The power of a king doesn't come from his own self. It comes from the army. It comes from the people. You see, in this nation, there needs to be an awakening of what is really going on. And for that to happen, you have to be willing as people to take stock and say, man, this place is a mess. We need to fix it. Maybe there's something we can do. Maybe we need to button up. Maybe it's time. See, with any system, if it sits long enough, it stagnates and gets corrupt. I know I created the welfare system. I've watched it happen. Let me explain how this works. In the beginning, we created this really cool, unprecedented system. It's based on financial math. And the math goes like this. The poor people were not helping our system. They were suffering in it, but they weren't able to help in it. They're not being a financial benefit if they're not working technically. The country's economy isn't gaining anything from them if they're not spending money and earning it, therefore. Because there was no free money being handed out. The wealthy certainly aren't doing it. And unfortunately, when you have each country has, this is, by the way, Hyperion's plan. Hyperion was a conqueror in ancient times who created our modern financial system. He based it on the Jews' system, but it is an inferior system because it denies the people money. It's a slave system. It was never created to be equal. The guy was a slave driving, conquering inbred, frick. Literally. It's well documented. The guy was a freak, a Satanist freak. Used to burn priests alive. Created all kinds of false religions because he didn't like the ones that were there. Wiped them all out. Didn't like the people. Wiped them out. Went country to country to country doing that. Conducting genetic warfare. Look it up. He's not the only conqueror to have done it. In fact, his blood, just like Genghis Khan, spreading his blood all over. You may have heard that there are a huge chunk of the people on Earth, 20% or something like that, that could trace some part of their DNA to him. Because he's had so many children, thousands of them. And they in turn spawned so many children and traveled the world and kept spawning children. And that was their mission. That's what they wanted to do. And they were on this mission from Hyperion to spread the blood of their families, of their country, and dominate the bloodlines of other nations. And that is what they tried to do. They forced the blacks to breed with whites and created a whole new race. They did that in ancient times. If you heard the stories about the Anunnaki and gods created a race, that's all bullshit created by Hyperion. That's why the old history was all destroyed and wiped away. Anything that would tell you the truth, he wiped out. That's why a lot of places were buried, to hide them from him. Because he was conquering the whole world, and that was no joke. See, he was smart enough to realize in his time that there were technologies around that were pretty advanced. But it was the kind of thing where each culture had worked on and developed one kind of cool technology that was really advanced above any other of anywhere else in the world. And he was in the heart of the lands where he could just reach out and start taking those nations. Now, where the region that he was in the world had natural metallurgy in the ground that was very strong. So good we wouldn't match it for thousands of years. Because they didn't have the knowledge to remake that steel. It was just there. It was available. Between that and meteoric iron, they had the strongest steel they could ever need. And they had lots of it in the area they were. On the surface, readily available to pick up. And that is a fact. And they built swords and shields. And I have explained in other videos, my family on the Robinson side and Wilhelm side bear some responsibility there. They took our people. The Jews weren't wrong when they said they've been taken slaves multiple times. They're of Aramaic descent, so are we. We're one of the 12 tribes. That's what they call it, because we were split. Time and history so long ago, we have no written account. We try our best to keep the knowledge alive, because it's the only hope we have of defeating his plans. See, he knew we couldn't just fix the DNA. Well, on that too, I have a message of hope, because we can correct the damage now. If you've heard of selective breeding and wondered why people in the old days were so hard about that for thousands of years, that's why. Because of Hyperion. Because his blood was spread so out that we wanted to annihilate it. And to do that meant selectively breeding. Meant not breeding with any obvious genetic deformity, because that came from inbreeding. These people were freaks. Look at all the Egyptian pharaohs. It was Hyperion who put all these people into power. What he did was conquer the whole world and put representatives of his people in charge in one place after another, after another, after another. Wipe out the history so that in 100 years nobody would know. See, he understood the generational gap of knowledge and how that really works when everything is passed on father to son like it was in those days. What happens is, it's why we created writing and put it into use and started creating libraries. Libraries are a way to fight Hyperion's plan, believe it or not. And the reason is, he didn't want the people to have the knowledge. He wanted to wipe out the knowledge and only his people to have it. That's where the concept of sacred knowledge comes from. It used to be very open. We all shared knowledge. We would teach each other quite openly, just like I teach how to make bows. Look at my YouTube channel. It's filled with me teaching people how to make all the things I know how to make. Anything I figure out, anything I design, I'm happy to share it. My people have always been like that. There was no need for them to take us hostage. And they did, in ancient times. I'm a Robinson and a Wilhelm. On the Robinson side, we made ships. Great ships. Powerful ships that could sail oceans. used those ships to travel the world. That's a fact. We made swords and shields, the finest in the world. And he used those to murder. He took the Wilhelm family because they were sane, a very powerful, wealthy family. And the wealth didn't really exist in that context. They had both been royal families in the time before the conquerors. This is the reality of history. Unfortunately, what Hyperion did was realize that what he needed to do was take all the wealth of all these nations, put all his people in charge, and then divvy up all the money amongst them, and the gold and all of that. Create the financial system so that it was all documented. It's why in all these ancient cultures, they've wondered why in archaeology, all of these ancient cultures have, right from their earliest writings, it's all financial stuff. Well, that's why. Because Hyperion created the financial system, and that's all he wanted them to write down. He made them write down everything. Why do you think they did it? We do business. Nobody writes everything down, man. That's why we need freaking lawyers and people get into so much trouble. People don't do that. We just make things. We barter. We trade. It's a word and a handshake. That's all anybody ever needed. That's why the concept of integrity are related to those things. These things are facts. They're the facts of our race. I am Aramaic. Under enemy shura kenani. Ska with shu. Oh, pipe nane. I'm so sad that my own people can't speak our language. That's how we lost it. I spent my lifetime researching these things, trying to find the truth. And I'm sad to say I actually know it. See, the wealthy and the powerful and the elite, essentially, the core of them are the descendants of these people to this very day. They have been running the world forever. In the countries, well, they just war back and forth to trade the money back and forth. The spoils of war. Look at the laws, the way they're written. They're not written for the people, my friend. They were written by Hyperion in ancient times by an inbred conqueror to sow the seeds of suffering for all time. That's what he wanted. It's why you see all these writings about stories about aliens saying they were gods and all this stuff. They're trying to tell you that there were a group of people who came here and took over and made us all slaves. But they weren't allowed to tell you that. If they'd have told you that, they'd have been killed. Well, here comes the hope part. See, Hyperion predicted that wouldn't go on more than 1,000 years, that the whole system would just utterly collapse. And because we couldn't correct the DNA, and he knew what that was, believe it or not, because we knew about the blood. We knew the effects that had on species from living in nature. I grew up living in nature. I've documented to have done so and lived with wolf packs, lived with bears. And there's a reason I did that, because it was the closest to God's way I've ever been. The animals are incredible. They're not what you think. If you're kind to them, I put out food and water for them. Boil water and put it out for them every night. And you know what that got me? Grateful animals who loved me. Birds, deer, all of them were taking that fresh water. All of them were healthier because of it. I made the animals around me better. There's lines in scripture about that too. The animals need us and we need them. They provide for us everything we need. Our greatest inventions are based on what's something called biomimicry. See, in ancient times, things were awesome. We had a great way. Hyperion hated it. Absolutely hated it, because it was a peaceful way. We all were just happy and sharing, and the world was celebrating, building great technologies, and sharing them freely among nations. There wasn't global warfare, because the predominant blood was kind. It wasn't all conquering evil shit-stained people. Well, the problem is there are actual specific signs that come from that kind of genetic damage. And unfortunately, a large number of people in our society share that because we stopped selectively breeding. It's now making it worse. But through selective breeding, in ancient times, this is the message of hope. We did that for so many thousands of years. It annihilated a lot of that blood. And even now, a lot of the people that are trapped in those circles, because they're under death threat, these people, it's a deeply evil shit kind of thing that he started. So I understand a lot of things. There are some that have said I'm the smartest man in the world. Well, that may be true. I've studied a lot. I've learned a lot. And I've learned things that archaeologists have no idea. They sit there wondering about. I can always answer their questions and tell them what's happened. That's why. Because I know the truth. I know what happened before all the stuff they found. And it explains everything when you look at all of it. It's so clear. It's not even funny to me. It's disgusting and I cry over it. Because it's the fate of our race, man. I am Aramaic. And I'm deeply sad. I don't shine anymore. Our race shined once. It was glorious, ancient, powerful, wise, benevolent, kind, and empathetic. We shined on the races of the Ute, that is the universe. We shined on them wisdom. We shined on them knowledge. We shined on them mathematics, geometry, language, culture. We came first. And we stayed. We didn't just leave. That's more bullshit for my purity. The truth is, it was well known at the time that our race had come from the stars. They called us the Star People, or the White Hope, or the ones who came from the stars. They called us gods, because we came with so much technology and they were not advanced. They barely had started to develop their own languages. And we showed up right then and accelerated them. Yes, we altered your DNA. For two reasons. One, you weren't evolved enough yet to communicate without grunting and clicking. Very hard for you to communicate with that. In fact, it's impossible. But your evolution was already set. Not by us, by God. All we did was accelerate it a little bit. Not because we wanted you as slaves. That's bullshit. We did it because it was the only way we could communicate with you and teach you. The sun of this world is dying. Its time is known. No, not to the day. No one can know that. Only God. But its chemistry is known. Its lifespan is known. Therefore, given its chemistry and its size, it's simple math. Simple fact is, nothing lasts forever. There's a reason we call it the human race. Did you know that as an Aramaic, I am of the race of men? It's written in Scripture that in the beginning God gave us Aramaic. He speaks ancient Aramaic. That's why Aramaic shines. What I've said is only Aramaic shines. It was an old saying because it comes from the beginning. From the very beginning when God made the universe fresh. It has been destroyed and recreated many times since then. This isn't the first iteration of the Ute. It's the fourth. We were created in the first of the humanoid races. It is written in our scripture that it is our mission from God to explore the Ute. And to shine on all the people. Wisdom, the nature of the universe, the nature of themselves, and what they can become, like we have. So I'm going to tell you the history of our race. It is a true history. If you're white, or Aramaic. When we arrived here 33,000 years ago, we did so because these people were evolving, and we knew that. But they had about a million or so years of evolution to go, and their sun was only going to last another 30,000 or so thousand years, and we knew that. But 30,000 years is lots of time for us. We can accelerate you by being here, by teaching you, by helping to mix our DNA with yours, to evolve you. Because believe it or not, it's pretty much the same. You're not monkeys, you're human beings. Dig it? We're created by God. Many races are created through creation. On to create. That's what we call it. All of creation. On to youth. All of the universe. Over all time. Sunday. We shine for the great God. Bona people. For all the people. Shona Esa. It's a little more complicated than that. Bona has many meanings. But I want to give you a quick lesson in Aramaic. See, my message for the Canadian people is to wake up. Don't be a victim to the bullshit videos you see on the internet. You can see for yourself they don't know everything. They haven't figured it out. They're just not even putting the pieces together, but they are asking the right questions. And it is leading them down the path of wisdom. Seeing that none of this makes sense. That it seems to be total bullshit that around the world all these places got buried all around the same time. All these wiped out civilizations. We know there were ancient conquerors, one after another. But Hyperion didn't leave written records. All the ones who came after did. He instituted it. See, that's the problem. We're living in Hyperion's world. To some degree. And to some degree in the one we helped make. Well, I gotta tell you, folks, we're gonna win. He's long dead. And thankfully, through selective breeding, we can eradicate that bad blood. But we can also do it through DNA. Now, the problem is people stopped selectively breeding, and even through selective breeding, we were never able to totally wipe it out. But we were able to keep it fairly suppressed to the point where people that exhibit that kind of behavior are deviant in our society. Well, they don't call it the Dark Ages for nothing. He instituted the Dark Ages with his inbreeding because he spread that blood all over the world in a 100-year period. People went from being good, predominantly, as we are by nature, but from a baby to a kitten to a baby bear, their nature is kind with you because you're human. And even they know that it's true. See, to them, you're like a god. Think about it. You're so big, you can just reach down and pick them up. You make sounds they can't fathom or imagine. But what if that kitten was so smart and understood every word you were saying? Was on a path to evolution that would allow its hands to be real hands, to build technology. Well, when we see that, we watch those races, and as they naturally evolve and emerge, we show up when they're ready, and we teach them. Only on this planet we had a problem. This is the story I've been told. That the problem was that there were too many races here. Not in a bad way, in a good way. Apparently, with each iteration of the universe, this is more good news, it has generated more good life than the one before. In every iteration, it gets better. And this world was on an incredible path, being the only world in the race's history, our races, that we have ever observed over every iteration of the universe as it created and destroyed itself over and over again. We've only ever seen one world like this, apparently. And it's a unique sun. And this world generated 4 separate native races, all on its own. The Inuit, The North American natives, the South American natives, believe it or not, they're one. They are all related. That's one race. Australian Aboriginals are a different group. The Sentinelese represent yet another group. Are you digging it? And the people from Africa represent yet another group. This planet didn't just spawn an intelligent race. It spawned them one after another on every continent, man. Even the archaeologists will tell you that there were at one time 8 different species of man, and 4 of those essentially survived. That's how we got to be where we're at. Only when you look, you see more than 4, don't you? Some native races, some non-native. Gee, why would we call ourselves non-native, man? Because in ancient times, everybody knew we were from space. They were here when we showed up. They spent 1,000 years worshiping us as gods before they realized we weren't. We were literally here 10,000 years before they stopped treating us like we were anybody special. Because we insisted. We kept begging them to do it. Just treat us like human beings. That's good enough for us. We'll treat you the same. It's still what we ask of you today. Just be decent human beings. That's the best you can do. Well, in that, you have a responsibility to be a good human being if you care to. And part of that means being a good part of your country, whether you care to be or not. Because it bears some responsibility. We're all here together. Treating each other well is the first part of that, the most important part of that, because it's all about us. It's all about what we build here together. And that is my message for the Canadian people. Embrace your willpower, because that is your power. Don't storm the castle. Then you'll just be like them. Don't be a warmonger. Don't be a conquering inbred. If you got some of that blood in you, you may feel it. I do. I have friends who do, and they don't know why. But when we start to talk about it, they end up feeling better about it. And they know it's true. Because they understand it better. It leads them to wisdom about themselves. And that's what I hope it will do for you. To help you to understand why there's these things in your blood that you can't figure out. I'm going to explain to you the first symptoms that any race, including wolves and dogs and cats, bears, exhibit in order from the damage done by inbreeding. The first signs, aside from them being insular and not wanting to be around other families and all that stuff, which you see in our society. We're a very insular group now. We're not very social anymore. We used to be very socially based. That's why we're suffering so much and we're all depressed. We need it. It's been identified by psychologists. But yet we live a solitary existence. It's so against our nature to be that way. To have so little love shown to us. Because we show each other love. That's how it used to be. And so much. With everybody smiling at you, it's hard not to feel like this is a great place to be. That's the key. Not violence. Smile. Show up. And vote for a change. This is a message from your Crown Prince. You see, when the day comes that you're ready for a monarchy, if I'm still breathing, I'll do what they've asked me to do, and I'll take the throne. I'll be your king. I'll be proud to do it. But so long as this government is run by these people, you can't have a king. You'll have a puppet show of shit show of greed, as it has been so far. If you want change, you have to embrace the change. You have to know that it's possible. Be aware of your power and use it for the greater good. Think about the good of each other. Think about the good of your children. Think about the world you want them to grow up in. And then do the right thing.